Let's see, just skipping back. Hi, Hillary. Hi, Susan. Mark. Hello, Karen. Leah. Welcome, welcome. Ruth. Hi. And Jackie. And Paula Hubble. Welcome, welcome. Hey. Could Mark be blown, of course. I'm assuming you can hear me, yeah? Yeah? Can you hear me, Trisha? Just so I know that the mic is working and everything. You can. Great. And welcome, Donna. Hi. So, yeah, welcome to Detailed Amsterdam, number 15. Crazy. Madeline, hi. Yeah, so, let me see. Look at my new hat. What do you think? It's from the same Mozambican woman who sells them on the market. I've been buying them from her for years. Excellent, Donna. You know, Donna, the reason that I realized that my mic wasn't working is because you told me a bunch of times and it didn't really log initially. And then I listened to a tour and I thought, wow, the sound is terrible. And I tested it and the cable wasn't working. So yeah, I got a new cable and I haven't actually had time to test it. So this is the first. Ruth, it has been raining quite a lot today and it's actually scheduled to rain. So I came cycling over here quickly and I forgot to bring an umbrella. Well, that's okay because it looks like the rain is going to hold off for at least half. Oh, well, welcome, Penny, and thank you for coming back for some. Yeah, I'm doing these every Monday and they're all online as well. So you can see the last 14 and I better get on with it. Okay, so how do we get there? I know, obviously, Donna, you let me know if the image or anything goes wonky or funny. Or Ruth, if you could let me know, that'd be cool. But we are here on Bickers Plain. And this is where I ended the last time. And Bickers Plain is on Bickers Island. And Bickers Island is an island that was bought by the Bickers family in 1621, if my memory serves me well. And we spoke about that last time. And here is the railway line that went in 1887 or 78. I can't even remember now. It's one of those two things. And it meant that this was no longer an island because they joined it to the continent. Hi, Carol. And this line went in as the last portion of the Amsterdam to Den Helder line. And it linked the Willemspoort, which is the station they had on Haarlem Square, where we've been together. And that linked the Willemspoort to Amsterdam Central. It was the last bit of a railway line right up to the north. And the reason they put that in, welcome Tariq, is because the North Holland Canal used to freeze in the winter. And the reason I'm coming way back here is because I want to set up a shot. So there you see what it looks like today. And here is my trusty tablet. And I can show you what it used to look like. Oopsie daisy here, and I hope we haven't got too much reflection on the screen. The buildings often change, the fronts of buildings. Hello, Lynn. So let me take that away. The top of the building on the right is actually slightly different. The building, actually, that's a whole new facade, you can see there. Because there are two old buildings here, two small ones. And then there's a big one. And then if you look here, there's quite a modern building with a kind of vague factory style to it. Welcome, Charity. And over there, but this is what used to be there before. And this is, or was rather, a church. Hey, welcome, Tony. Long time no see. So let me just settle down here and show it to you. Okay. Oopsie. And this was called the Eilandkerk, the Island Church. Obviously because we're on islands here. And in 1660, a church was built here actually out of wood. This is not the wooden one I'm showing you. This was one that was built there in 1736 out of stone. And it had something of a celebrity attendee. Vincent van Gogh or Van Gogh or Van Gogh, however you want to say it. Let me just do this so you can see the... Oh, now it gets too much reflection if I put it that way. Oh, that's because the screen's gone dark. So there and there. So Vincent van Gogh or Van Gogh loved his Sunday services. I've shown you enough of that. I'll go for a little walk while we talk. And he actually, on Sunday the 22nd of July, he, and I'm just going to lift you upwards to show you the lovely sky. He'd been to the Noorderkerk, so the Northern Church, and that's the one that we saw when we were on the Noordermarkt recently. He'd been there for a 7 a.m. service on a Sunday. How's that for dedication, hey? And then he walked up this way, and he came to a service at the church that used to be here. And he came to hear his uncle. His uncle was also his mentor, and his name was Pastor Johannes Paulus Stricker. And a week later only, he was back again to hear his uncle preach as well. Because this is when he was thinking of being very much a preacher. His uncle was Jan Jacob Lodewijk ten Kate. How's that for a Dutch name, huh? So what happened is I was sitting researching this tour, and then I got into a bit of a rabbit hole, as you do, because I saw these lovely old Dutch names. And what's a huge hand? Oh, the hand and the emoji. I into all these names, and then I remembered, like, hey, my granddad was Johannes Stephanus Henning. So I ended up going down an online rabbit hole, and I managed to trace back that family 8 generations in South Africa and then to Lipstadt. And they all had these long, complicated names, so I feel I actually got off really, really lightly, okay? But here is where the church was, and it's been replaced by these apartments called Yays, Y-A-Y-S. And they are serviced apartments, so you can rent them for a holiday. They're 300 to 400 euros a night, but they do sleep like 4 adults and 2 kids. And it's kind of funny because they're called Prince Island, which is so weird, because we're on Bickers Island. That's Prince's Island. So it's like they just felt that the word Bickers wasn't fancy enough. Maybe in English it sounds too much like you're bickering or something. But you can rent these apartments and you get a spectacular view of the railway lines. So if you're a train spotter, you just can't go wrong. Otherwise you get to see the tail end of Prince's Island over here, which looks a little bit like just a parking lot. But anyway, before I used to work in this area. I'll show you where I used to work, and these came after I'd finished working there, and I couldn't remember what was here before, because you just don't really. And then I was digging around online and I saw some old photos, and it was just a very nondescript factory building that was always closed, which is why I'd kind of never noticed it really before. But anyway, the family's bickering. A beautiful view here. This is a really nice part of Amsterdam, I must say. I do like it here. I live on the islands way in the east. And then, of course, I lived on the islands way I worked on the islands way in the west, as you do, you know. But it's actually not that far to cycle. So now the street that we're going to be mainly on this tour is the Bickersgracht. And what that means is, gracht is canal, so Bickers Canal. And a few things to have a look at here. Last week, we saw this from the other side, the other street from the back of the building, and oh gosh, if you look at this on Google Earth, this whole terrace here, which seems to be shared by two people, is huge. Anyway, it's a lovely industrial building from the early 1900s. The IJzerstaven means the, oh gosh, what does it mean again? The iron rods. And it's been a studio with somebody for like 40 years. Nice studio. And a guy called Egon Schrama. And 20 times a year, there's performance here. So, extravaganza. And there's sort of modern jazz, if that's your thing. And contemporary classical, all these types of things. And what's so cool about this is that if you go to the website, which is ijzerstaven.nl, ijzerstaven.nl, here it is, and then you can actually see a whole lot of previous performances that have happened here on Vimeo. And like a really nice big resource of that type of music, if that's kind of what you like. And there's space for 50 people in the audience. So, and they have, of course, also an agenda, a menu of things that are coming up. There are a couple of gable stones which have been so recently replaced here that I can't actually find any analysis of them online. They were put in, very recently, but they're actually from 1688. I managed to find mention of them online, but not, I can never zoom out, but not actually any detail of what they're about. So there's that one there, which is to do with the ship. And there's this little one here, which says, in Vreeland. And Vreeland is actually a town near Utrecht, I think. So really, really beautifully restored gable stones. Yeah, it does have that kind of firehouse look to it, but it was actually a metalwork factory because the square where we were, the Bickersplain, was renamed the Hendrik Jonkerplein because all the way down there, that whole block was taken over by a company called Jonker and Sons, and they were big work providers on the island for about 150 years, and actually they renamed the plain. Renamed the square in 1956 from Bickers Square to Hendrik Jonker Square or Hendrik Jonker Plain because, you know, we all tend to be quite present-centric. And here's where I used to work. When I came to Amsterdam in 2009, I worked on these boats here, and they're lovely old boats that go on the canals. You know, you get the new ones which have got bow thrusters and they maneuver easily. These ones didn't. I don't know if they have them now. So as the barman, you also had to be the sailor and you had to kind of help them around the corners. All the other skippers would really get annoyed with you because it took so long. But they're really beautiful old Dutch barges. And it's not a thing that was aimed really at tourism. It's a thing that was aimed really much more at Dutch companies that would do these as little outings. I can't even begin to tell you how many crates of cool drink and beer and stuff and food I've walked up and down this little pathway so late at night. And actually, you know, it was that incredible hard work coupled with disappointing hourly rate. That's not anything to do with the boss of the company, who's a lovely guy. It was just that that's what you got paid for that sort of thing. And that is what actually triggered me being a tour guide. Because there was a Dutch company on the boat, and there was this Dutch having, you know, an outing. And then there was this Dutch tour guide that actually rented a guide. And he said bits and pieces about Amsterdam, which I thought was quite interesting. And I said to him, you know, tell me more about this guiding thing. How much do you make? And he told me how much he made. It was like 4 times more an hour than I was making. And that's what actually triggered me to become a tour guide. I thought, I'd like a piece of that. And it's been a really, really lovely journey subsequently. You just never know, Robin. And I definitely found it. There are so many plants on this island. Look at this. I'm not entirely sure what these are. I think we've said before I didn't know what they were. They're moving around, but you can see how windy it is. There you go. And also there's a beautiful buddleia here. Check out how lovely. These are real magnets for butterflies. Oh, I don't think they are hydrangeas. They look too small, the petals, to be hydrangeas. Hey, we got 49 people on board. So, I always forget this, but I'm remembering more now. So if you want to like it, please do. Apparently it's important. Lots of roses. Very lovely. Oh, they are hydrangeas. Okay, cool. Well, are they really nice hydrangeas? Love them. Okay, this is where I used to work. And there are a lot of little gardens. So we've just seen one little garden, right? And we're certainly going to see more. And on our walk, more buddleia, huge play area here, which is just great. What are these called again? Oh, I know what these are called because I grew up with them. Somebody will know. What are these ones called? Butterfly bushes in California. I know, and you know the name of them is just on the tip of my tongue. And I know, isn't it hibiscus? Ah, thank you, Ruth. Yes, it is hibiscus. Oh, there was a bee. Check out on the right here, a nice little cozy little square here. And with actually some of the really old buildings, because there's not a lot of old buildings left here. So, nice area to sit in. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, as the public, you can go into these little gardens, by the way. So when you come to Amsterdam, do walk on these islands and then do bring a book and settle down. Now, what I like to do is always give recognition where it's due. And here is a place called Gallery Moon. And so it's a gallery that's open Friday through Sunday. And lots of art and retro things. But more importantly for me, the guy here has written this book about 400 years of the Western Islands, which I've read, and it's a really nice resource for talking about it or learning about these islands. And it's also got a nice summary of Dutch history, generally. Not only that, so he's eventually had it translated into English, but he does tours on also Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 3 p.m. And if you just reach out, he would probably arrange it to be an English one. So yeah, I definitely recommend that. So yeah, that's Gallery Moon. And there's always been a lot of, well, not always, but there have been a lot of galleries on this island for a very long time. And a lot of artists on these 3 islands, actually. Okay. Now, this bridge has a name. A lot of these bridges and these roads didn't actually have names back in the 1600s, but this one always did. I'll show you the views from it, which are very nice. And one of these really nice, very fashionable vegetation roofs. So a roof of a houseboat that's made with succulent plants. And they slow down the water and they're good for insulation and all that kind of stuff. And this has to be one of the sweetest little boats I've ever seen. Isn't it just the cutest? A living roof, absolutely. So I love this little one here. And the one behind it is very similar. It's pretty much exactly like one of the ones I used to work on. And here's a better view of it. Oh, you can see it down in the distance. That one there is the same type of boat as this one here. And it's called a chalk. That's Tjalk. And these were flat-bottomed Dutch cargo boats, cargo barges. These ones were quite slow, so they were ready for moving around cargo that didn't have a sell-by date, you know, so sand and stuff like that. If you were moving around cargo that like vegetables, then you would need a quicker boat, and that was typically a clipper. But this was slow. And I haven't spoken about this for ages, and I don't think on this cycle yet. So they were flat-bottomed because the water was very shallow, but also high up north. It was tidal. So often the tide would go out, and then the boat would be high and dry, you know, on sand that was exposed. So if it had a keel, it would fall over. And then when the tide came in, it would fill up and never float again. So being flat-bottomed, it could just sit on the sandbanks. But then being flat-bottomed, it had no keel. And when you raised the sail, it would just slide sideways. And that's what these things are here. These are lee boards in English. And you drop down the one on the leeward side of the boat. And that's the side away from the wind, and the boat pushes against that, and it cuts forward through the water. The Dutch are normally very, very, very practical and literal with naming things, but they had an attack of poetry with leeboards and called them zijzwaarden, which means side swords. Okay. Anyway, so here's the other view. Looking up here, these buildings here were actually built in 1975. I've seen a lot worse for 1975. And they were copying this trapezium sort of shape of some old 1600s warehouses that you also get. You can see one just peeking out at the end there. I'll show you when we get there if I don't forget. So that is the warehouse that gave all of these their trapezium shape, just to try and keep some reference to the great, oh no, yeah. You know, 2 days gone by. So yeah, and it's funny, we've got like kind of 1970s Victorian bay windows. But anyway, of course, there's another garden, and there's enormous biodiversity here. Actually, you know what? I think I'll talk about that a bit later. What I wanted to say is that this street had a name, and the name was slash is. It's complicated. Let me just manhandle the what's it called? The tablet out. The name was Galgenstraat. I know. Dutch is such a Romance language. Galgenstraat means Gallows Street. Because from here, looking that way, before they built that building there, you would be looking right across the A, the water behind Central Station, and you would be looking towards the Gallows, which is kind of where the Shell building, which is now the Adam Tower, is. So those were the Gallows across the other side in Amsterdam North, which you could see from here in the far distance. So that is what gave this street its name. Now, what they decided in 1622 is like, that's really kind of a gruesome name and we'd like to change it. So the city tried to change it to Prinsendwarsstraat, which means Prince's Cross Street. Well, it never worked. because nicknames catch on here, and they kind of gave up, and it's been Galgenstraat forever. Now, you get lots of little tucked away places like this, as I mentioned already. Let me just zoom this in a little bit. I think the angle's too wide. And this is what's so nice about this island. There are all these little places you can just tuck yourself away. This wouldn't be particularly peaceful generally, because right behind me is a children's playground. So it was not necessarily going to be. Let's try and get this. Oh well, I give up with the zoom. But obviously there are no kids playing now, so I'll show you what it looks like. So this island, as I mentioned, why they were built in the last episode. By the 1960s, the commercial harbors had moved. And these islands became a bit forgotten. You see, the bigger ships couldn't fit here anymore. So they moved elsewhere. And the islands became forgotten. The shipyards and the dry docks were closed. And sort of alternative culture took over. It was a mixture of squatters, artists, urban nomads, if you will. Misfits and outcasts, basically. And often those people could tick more than one of those boxes, okay? These are my kind of people. This is the kind of community that I lived in on the eastern side of Amsterdam, and I still live in, actually. Here's a bunny rabbit. So that's what happened here in the 60s. There was actually quite a lot of social control. So people just controlled the island themselves. They didn't allow street prostitution. They didn't allow street drug use because there were a lot of people with children. They, discouraged litter. So the place had to be kept nicely. And that created one of these really fantastic sort of Amsterdam communities here. And people living on old boats, but old boats need a lot of repair. And these people often didn't have any money. So they moved on. They moved into, they have a fluffy bunny here, into the old hangar warehouses and kind of made almost like little villages inside. Oh, these shy bunnies. And then, of course, there was a big fight, between the residents and then ultimately the gentrification and what have you. Ultimately, the gentrification won, but I think the residents did get some successes as well. Yeah, Lynn, it always happens that the Bohemian areas are so cool, and then, of course, they attract in the money, and then they're not Bohemian anymore, and then the people who made them cool are forced out because they can't afford it anymore. And they've got to go even further away from the city, is how it generally works here. Anyway. This petting zoo is called the Dierenkapel, and that sounds like it means the animal chapel, which it does, but actually it's named after one of the original two guys who looked after a lot of these animals before it was actually a petting zoo. Strangely enough, it was actually the location of a chemical factory. And then the ground was cleaned up, and because the informal sort of petting zoo type of thing was so popular, the council cleaned up this ground and they ended up designating it to actually be a proper petting zoo, which I would say is a real win for, the amenity of the neighborhood. So that's something good that came out of all of that. More Budley. Okay, let's talk about the biodiversity. Because, and here's just what triggered me with that is the buddleia. Now, I lived in London for a long time, and buddleia was a real nightmare because it would grow on the tops of buildings and break apart the brickwork. But we don't seem to have that problem here in Amsterdam with it, strangely enough. It just seems to be a magnet for butterflies, which nobody minds. Okay, we need more butterfly magnets. And just here is a close-up of the old 1600s warehouse with the trapezium gable, which of course was where they took that motif from. Let's try and zoom out. There we go. And for the 1970s buildings that actually worked remarkably well. Okay. So as far as the biodiversity, there are about 150 wild plant species here. So is it still fuzzy for you? Oh dear, I'm sorry about that. Maybe it's just this part of Amsterdam, but there's nothing I can do about it, I'm afraid. Now, the reason for so much diversity in such a small area is because of the trade that used to happen here. This was a harbor, and ships would come from all over the world, and then seeds would come with those ships, and they would. I wasn't planning on walking through here because I didn't want to. Oh no, I'm not going to walk through because there's some people sitting on the bench there, very, very peacefully, overlooking the water, and I certainly don't want to disturb that. So we'll just be here from the road. So this is called a buurttuin. Oh no, anyway. So yeah, seeds from all over the world on ships from all over the world. So 150 wild species. And some of them from all continents. From North America came Jerusalem artichoke and wormwood ragweed. From South Africa came ragwort. I'm really sorry about that, by the way. From Africa, generally wild sorghum. From Asia, buddleia that we've seen so much of. And from South America, a flower called the apple of Peru. And then a whole lot more as well. And I think this is Jerusalem artichoke over here. And yeah, so and here this is the fourth little island, little garden that we've seen walking along. I mean, that's a remarkable amount of nice sort of green communal space. It's a real quality of life that you certainly don't get in the inner city. Love these islands, they're just great. Okay, and a tree that came down in the big storm recently over here, and they're very slowly getting rid of it. I suspect that they're probably going to be letting it decompose in parts for like that kind of rewilding kind of thing. And then not really rewilding, a skateboard park and a ping pong table that looks like it belongs in a prison. Not that I've been in prison to recognize them, of course, but well, except for that one night. Oh, but that's another story. Very, very wonderfully quiet here. And it's so lush, these islands are just so, so lush. I hope you're getting an okay picture because it's kind of pretty. And it's not raining, I can't believe it. Heavy rain was forecast. I cannot believe that I am not walking in the rain. And swings. And these playgrounds are right. You want a story? Okay, maybe. And here's the Montessori school. So Montessori is a wonderful type of schooling, very Amsterdam, even that's not from here. It's about nurturing each child. And, for them all to find their own level and pace, to try and bring out their strengths, to instill a love of learning. And, the emphasis is on the whole development, the social, cultural, respecting different viewpoints, different people. So it's lovely, 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 lovely. Sure, I'll tell you the story one day. There's a whole lot of mosaics here, which are made by the kids at the school. So little mosaics put into not only the sidewalk, but this little, on the edge of a play area. Lots and lots and lots of them. And then there's quotations from Dutch writers and poets. So let me translate a few if I can. You know, it can be difficult translating poetry. Throw some light on the shadow of your face. I like this one. Ik zou je nooit anders dan anders willen. I would never want you different from the different that you are, kind of thing, as a translation. In Dutch you can say, because the whole Dutch thing, they have this thing about, like, doe normaal, you know, doe normaal, just be normal, and then what the implication is, and then you're crazy enough just trying to act normal. Okay, so doe niet zo anders is like the flip of that. Don't be so otherwise, you know, so different. But so I kind of really like that. I wouldn't want you. Basically, I wouldn't want you any other way than the crazy or the that you are, or something like that. And these go all the way along here. And this is a good one. This is: doe nooit wat je moeder zegt, dan komt het allemaal terecht. Never listen to your mother, and everything will be just fine. Sorry, mothers. Sorry, mothers in the audience. Okay. Let's just have a quick peek down here. That's the Western Dock Dyke across there. Of course, we're going to walk down there at some point. I haven't quite decided the route yet. And some big buildings on the... I'll talk about that later. Another tour. I was going to tell you about the time I was locked up in prison for a night. It was by the military police in Amsterdam. And I was on pass for the weekend, but I had to do 2 years in the army. I came a day early to see some friends of mine perform in a band. And my lieutenant knew and everything, but I didn't have I was on AWOL basically. And then we were going into town, me and my best friend, and I was dressed up as like a groupie of the band with all colorful bangles and bracelets and psychedelic culottes and lipstick and you name it, you know, and whatever, you know, I was one of those kids. And then we were drunk and he was driving, but that wasn't a problem then, it was cool, nobody worried about that. And the police pulled us over and they didn't mind that we'd been drinking or even had open beers. But my friend thought it would be useful if he said to the police that I was in the army, that they would actually feel sorry for us and let us go because I was doing my military service. So he did that. And then they said, where's your passbook? Which of course I didn't have with me because my leave was only from the next day. So then they plucked me out, put me in the back of a van and locked me up for the night. And I missed the concert. I was beyond furious with my friend. And I had to go through town. The next day somebody brought my passbook and I got, it all ended fine. But I missed the concert and I had to walk through town on a Saturday morning dressed like a really strange looking groupie of some fringe band. Anyway, so that's how I actually spent a night in prison. I don't recommend it. Okay. Now, how's that for a nice little drawbridge? I haven't thought about that for years. So yeah, these islands are linked by numerous drawbridges and some very pretty ones. Oh, I was so unimpressed. Anyway, yeah, I mean, he's moved to Australia like so many South Africans. But we went on holiday to Thailand together about 10 years ago. So we're still friends, yeah. Okay. Coming across to this island now. Oh, look at this boat. And it tickled me that it's called the volle maan, the full moon, because normally ships and boats are called the half moon, after Hudson's one. But here's the full moon. And doing what I do, I go around and I take photographs of things, and then I look in books and I look them up online. And I actually found out a little bit about the full moon. But it's a German boat from 1926. And it's somebody's home, but they also run it as a B&B. And it looked really nice. So how's that for an interesting place to stay when you're in Amsterdam? You get your own private entrance, which is the gangplank closest to us. Walkway, whatever you call it. It's this one over here coming up. And then you get the back deck here with the umbrella up, obviously, as well. And this is your own private entrance here. And the people who own it live on it. And I'm going to show you some photos. Let me just find it over here, hang on a second. I took from their website, which I'm sure they won't mind, because let's face it, I'm advertising for them. But it looks so beautiful inside. Here's the bed, the bedroom. So it's a double bed. And then I don't know how well you can see. You can't really see in this one, the sides of the ship. That's in the one way. Whoops. And then here's in the other direction. So there's some steps up, and there's a little kitchenette and a bathroom, and I don't know what the prices are, but you just Google Volleman B&B or something like that, and it just looks really nice. It's a way better view than looking at the railway line, don't you think? Although you can't sleep 6 people, I guess. This beautiful boat as well. Love all these old ships around here. Oops. Okay, and let's end with a view down the canal that I was standing over when I was on that bridge. A whole bunch of nice old warehouses here as well. This is Real Eiland, and I'll explain why next week and talk about it. I still can't believe it's not raining. How cool is that? Oh, I won't forget the quiz. Thank you, Donna. Okay. What I've done here before, by the way, all around here, so up here and around the middle island where we haven't even been yet, I've ice skated this whole area when it froze some years ago. And it froze obviously really hard. And it was just fantastic being able to see this area. Hillary, no, I haven't received an email from you. If you could send it again, that'd be great. I don't think I have. I'll check. Okay, the quiz. I vaguely thought about this. Now, the thing about the quiz, okay, it's for, is there parking? Oh, I don't know with the boat. You'd have to find out. With the B&B, probably not. But then most people don't drive here anyway. And generally for parking, if the question was more general, you know, you get residence parking, and then you can park anywhere in the neighborhood for an annual fee. Okay, the quiz. The thing about these quizzes is that they're for a slicey. So if you've already got one, then hold back on the answer. And if you don't want one, then please don't answer. I have it occasionally when somebody wins the quiz and then says, well, actually, they don't want it anyway, and then somebody else could have had that sort of thing. So if you want a slicey to add to a flower pot, hunker up to the keyboard now. Okay, and you know these questions are really easy. They're just to see if you've been listening. Okay, I showed you earlier at the beginning where there used to be a church called the Island Church. Who was the famous person who used to go to services there? Who was the famous person who used to go to services at the Island Church? Maybe nobody's answering because you all have, yes, Hillary, fantastic. Great, well, Hillary, if you can also email me your address where I can post you a slicey, I would be delighted to. Yes, it was Van Gogh. Great. And Hillary, if you could do that today, that would be great, because I need to post out a bunch. to Mark as well. And I'm going to do that. I like to do it in batches, and I've got a few kind of gathered up now that I need to post out. So if you can send that to me today, then I'll post them out tomorrow to everyone, I promise. Okay. Any questions or anything? Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining, everybody. Much appreciate it. Very much appreciate it. And yeah, till next week. Keep well and enjoy touring and enjoy whatever you're doing. Thank you, Trisha. Yeah, the time goes so quickly, huh? I'm getting slightly better at working out how much information I need to prepare. You want it last, absolutely. I know you've been trying for a while. Yeah, it's also we're also testing typing speed here, you know. Oh, thank you, Penny, and thanks for coming back. Yeah, you know what I'm going to do is carry on doing these every Monday. However, I'm also going to have to change the time because as the nights draw in, I don't want to do this in the dark. So it's probably still going to be Monday, unless I need to have a complete rethink. But it's going to have to be at about 5 p.m. my time. So it's a 2 hour earlier starting time than today. If anybody has any views on this or a day, just in Lee and Mai's group, just if you could just start a conversation in there, and then that's where we can chat about that. Okay. And oh, by the way, and thank you so much. You know what happens is I get donations from via PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee, and they come in all through the week, which is very, very sweet, because I know a lot of people also watch these later. So much appreciated, and take care, everybody. See you soon.